The 116 300 SD versus the 126 300 SD. So today we're going to talk about two different 300 SDs. And I know from this channel that a lot of people who own 116 series 300 SDs really love their cars, and a lot of people who own 126 series 300 SDs really love their cars. People often ask me which one is the better car. And so today we're going to explore the answer to that question, and it's going to be an interesting answer because there's not really a scenario where one is better than the other in terms of the entire car, but there are some aspects of the 126 that are better than those of the 116 and some aspects of the 116 that are better than those of the 126. So in 1978, Mercedes introduced the 116.120, the 300 SD. This engine made use of proprietary turbocharged diesel passenger car technology, and Mercedes underwent exhaustive redevelopment of the OM617 and came out with the OM617.950. This engine relied heavily on major updates to its crankshaft, connecting rods, valves, lubrication system, compression ratio, pistons, and injection pump to produce 115 horsepower instead of 83 horsepower, which was what was being produced at the time. This engine also showed the way forward with use of a rotary AC compressor, pencil type parallel instead of serial glow plugs, a more robust belt drive system, and of course a turbocharger. And these cars were further refined in 1980 with the inclusion of the ALDA system, EGR, automatic idle control, which was regulated through a mechanism in the pump known as a rack damper pin, and some improvements to the turbocharger and injection pump, leading to 120 horsepower in the 1980 model year. Unfortunately, some of the items that had sort of made life difficult for other 116 owners were also present on the 300 SD, and these included the automatic climate control system and the often criticized but extremely effective and protective giant bumpers. In August of 1980, Mercedes released the 1981 126.120 300 SD. This car quickly was nominated as Motor Trend's European Car of the Year and went on to sell in record numbers for a German diesel sedan, making it such that if you want one of these cars now, you can easily find one. Whereas just under 30,000 116 300 SDs were produced in 3 model years, about 80,000 126 300 SDs were produced in the 126 chassis between 1981 and 85. The 126 chassis underwent a number of key refinements throughout the years. 81 and 82 model year cars had 85 mile per hour speedometers. Their interiors were described to be not as hard wearing, at least in hindsight. And I personally think that quality control on the later OM617-951 engine assembly line was not as good as the earlier line for the 950 engine, which is what the 116 car used. Starting in 1984, some key improvements were made, such as plug-in seat switches instead of hardwired seat switches. Starting in 1985, Mercedes culminated their 126 300 SD effort with a taller rear axle ratio, a little bit more horsepower, and an improved vacuum control system for the transmission shifting, leading most people to think that the 85s are the best. And also, ABS became standard equipment for 85, and an airbag was optional if you felt that a Mercedes was not quite safe enough at the time. Now, here are some key advantages of the 116 that I think make the cars worth owning. The 116 is all in the details. If you look under the car, it has an incredibly stiff torsion brace between the left side and the right side, roughly in the middle of the car, just below the engine and transmission. This torsion tube not only adds an insane amount of rigidity to the car, but it strengthens the car in case of a side impact collision. The seats in these cars have been described as the best seats ever put in a Mercedes, being infinitely comfortable, and the instrument panel layout was described as extremely clear and easy to use. It was much improved, in my opinion, over the 115 series instrument panel. As far as the body is concerned, thicker metal was used on all of the 116s. You can hear this when you open and close the doors, but unfortunately the cars are more rust prone. Their front and rear glass, which I think leads to better visibility on the 116, also requires glass seals more frequently. And of course, the automatic climate control system, which I think is a hang-up for a lot of people, while very sortable, cannot be sorted by somebody who does not have a lot of patience and intelligence. Now, some other things I like about the 116, it uses a 722.1 transmission, which is a better transmission than the 722.3. It is tighter and crisper and lasts longer. Failure of these transmissions is extremely rare, and they really only tend to fail when somebody has tried to rebuild them and done a bad job. In addition, while the engine is not quite as smooth, I think that quality control was very high on these early turbo diesels, and engine failures do not seem to be a major problem here. Even when run out of oil, they seem to keep going and going and going. And I recall one occasion where I had a 300 SD, a 79, that drank a quart of oil every 25 to 50 miles that still ran despite the fact that there were chunks of piston laying in the oil pan when I pulled it out. So, you know, let that sink in. And that car did not die from engine failure. It died because my friend Christopher Seaman, who I gave the car to use, pulled out in front of another vehicle, and that was that. Now, the 126 300 SD, of course, is known for having a much better climate control system. It has a remote vacuum / air compressor for its central locking system. It does not have a tendency to vibrate as much at idle. I think it's a little bit of a smoother car at idle. Its interior noise is slightly lower because of the second firewall, but the 116 is reasonably quiet too. The smooth shifting 722.3 series transmission is still a good transmission, but it is not, I still don't think it's as tough or as serviceable as the 722.1. Now, in terms of features in the car, I think the most frustrating feature is the power seats. A lot of these cars had hardwired power seat switches. You have to convert them to a plug housing, so you have to spend a bunch of time soldering the plugs in. There was a time when Mercedes said there was no soldering allowed on their passenger cars, so you had to change the entire power seat harness. What a fun job if you're a technician. And I personally think that the rest of the interior in the 126 is not as durable as the 116. I know the 116s had the problem with the back seats deteriorating because of bad palm fiber pads, but that's much easier to deal with than, say, wood panels that are coming unglued from the dash. You know, the 126 used very thin wood, especially compared to the 116. Rear pillar panels, rear C-pillar panels falling down on the 126. Some other issues, but the 126 was a more rigid car overall. So I guess in all fairness, I'd say that the 126 is probably easier to sort, but the 116 is very upgradable. You can do a lot to it to improve it. You know, you can use an unwired tools climate control servo. You know, while the climate control, if we take the climate control systems out of the equation, I think the 116 is a better finished car. I think that it's more well thought out. It's much harder to sort out, but I think the end product is a very nice car indeed. And so while I think at the end of the day, maybe the penultimate car is the 85 300 SD, one could justify owning a 116 because they like the design and because they like the way the car feels. You're not doing yourself a huge disservice. And of course, engine performance and reliability on the 116 is just as good as any other diesel. And so that's why I'd say that really the two cars are are kind of 50-50. They're kind of neck and neck. Anyway, if you enjoyed this video, please like, share, and subscribe. Please tap the bell for notifications. And leave your comments below if you own a 116 or a 126 and you would like to tell us which one is better. And whichever 300 SD you have, enjoy it and keep it, because you're never going to be able to buy another car that good. As I like to tell people, the worst 116 300 SD in the world is still better than a 15 to 20-year-old clapped out used brand new Mercedes that hasn't been taken care of, because at least there's light at the end of the tunnel with the 116. So I'll see you guys later. Thank you so much.